Hello, Violet here on the Life Treasures Parenting Help channel, where you've come for intentional parenting conversations with me. Today's topic is communicate. And it's so important because developing a relationship with your kid is through communication. So I've come up with a very simple communication model that'll help you to be more effective in your communication, and it's intentional. You're prepared to have, this kind and loving conversation with your kids. And I don't pretend for this model to be the end all be all for all kids, but mainly it was inspired to make kids, your children, feel important, like they're the most important person on the planet. And by demonstrably making them feel loved and relevant through your full attention, actions, gesture, and words, this model will make them feel that they're so important to you, the most important person in the world, in their world. So follow me on this one, okay? They will know that the most important person in their world, you, thinks they are the most important person in the whole world. And that's cool, right? I think every kid should feel that they're the most important person in the world, with their parent. And of course, as they age, I have a program, my Life Treasures program, and one of the habits is I matter, but be humble. But, in the beginning, it's really important for them to know that they matter, how important they are. So here's the model. Basically, it's communicate early and often to connect with them through love, loving gestures, loving words, being non-judgmental, by showing your kindness and your empathy, and giving them your full support, right? Be their coach, be their cheerleader, and their number one fan, and they'll just know that, through actions, through actionable deeds, that you love and care for them. And at that age, you have to be literal that way and show them through your gestures and words how much you love them, and through your expression with kind and loving eyes, soft smile. Stroke them gently, pat them, massage them, lots of hugs and kisses, and sing I love you, and just really sweet things. Use endearing pet names, and of course, when you give them pet names, make sure that it can carry them through high school so you can keep using it without them feeling embarrassed. And although we make judgments every day, and it's not a bad thing, keep your judgments to yourself, in that you don't want them to feel they're being judged. You want them to feel heard. So give them a safe haven to say whatever the heck they want. And show kindness through your gentle words and not using put downs. And when you correct them, use the appropriate action, gestures, or words that they should have used. So you're teaching by example. Show compassion and empathy by projecting to them. For example, like if something happens and you have a contentious dispute, you're having this argument, have this line prepared. And if this is not comfortable for you, come up with something else. But say something like, hey, I understand how you feel, but right now we need to blank, or you need to blank. In a kind but in a firm voice, using a gentle volume. Don't shout, don't raise your voice, because it essentially becomes a shouting match after a while, right? So be mindful that you're not conveying this with anger by distorting your face or saying mean words. And keep in mind that how you say it and how you convey things are just as or more important than what you're saying. So the tone, the gestures, again, that's how you're saying it, right? How you're communicating it. This is all part of communication. Your face, your body language, where you're facing. And ultimately, sometimes it just doesn't work, right? You're in a grocery store or restaurant or someplace and it's just not working. So in situations where you feel you're out of control there, be courageous and remove yourself from the grocery store, the restaurant, wherever you are, a party, and it'll send such a strong message to your child. And if you start this early, they're going to get the message very quickly. And although I believe that kids should be heard and feel comfortable expressing themselves, they need to know an awareness from day one how it's done respectfully. And the only way that they're going to learn this is through you. So if you get amped out and you start going off, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to do the same thing, right? So use words that easily show respect or disrespect. Words do that. It's either respectful, disrespectful, neutral, but words convey things. And so you partner the word with the tone and volume. It becomes a habit and style of communication. So avoid using demeaning and hurtful words and just replace them with kind and respectful words that will eventually really resonate with them. So, for example, replace, instead of saying stupid, maybe you can say, was that a nice thing to do or say? And instead of shut up, I don't like that word, how about please lower your voice, or maybe, hey, hold that thought for now. And instead of saying, get over here, how about just gesturing to them, getting their attention, and having them come and pat the seat next to you so that they come and sit next to you. And instead of what, how about, excuse me, excuse me, what did you say? And instead of the famous eye rolling, how about figuring out a gesture or an expression of pause? And although simple, using please, excuse me, thank you very often. It's simple, but these words show respect. They're words of respect that convey respect, appreciation, and gratitude. So use it often, because some people just naturally, you notice, it's just naturally wired into their conversational style. And it's a quality that not everyone has these days, but it'll give your child an advantage. Teach them by setting a good example, and again, through your good word usage, actions, and gestures. And show them that you are their number one fan by encouraging them instead of belittling them. And don't intimidate them by raising your voice. And a lot of people do that. They raise their voice, it sounds stern. And what is that for? It's to scare them and to intimidate them. But think that you're their cheerleader, you're their coach, and you're helping them to believe that they can do it. So again, another quality that I go over and over again on is being patient. So another thing that you might really hone in and try to figure out is, what is their preferred style of communicating? Some kids like words, they talk a lot. Some people are very expressive with their gestures, or they draw signs, whatever it is. In knowing the nuances, temperament, disposition, say likes, dislikes of your kid, it enables you to communicate in a way that resonates with them. So, although our objectives are different, a way to get them to communicate with you very respectfully, and so that you can actually communicate information with each other, is through guidelines, and guidelines that are set ahead of time. For example, when we talk, communicate or have conversation, because our positions differ, we'll have differences of opinion in it, and it's okay, but we'll do it respectfully through talking politely to each other. Thank you, Elizabeth. And that means we won't use rude words or gestures. And instead, we'll use a normal voice and volume. No yelling, screaming, whining, because That's very disrespectful. And it'll also help in your communication if you set things up to succeed. So, for example, because of the age appropriate factor on this topic that I'm going to discuss at this point, don't give your kids carte blanche because it sets you up to fail, right? So, for example, something as simple as watching a movie or a TV program. Instead of what would you like to watch, how about giving them a choice? Would you like to watch this or would you like to watch this? Would you like to watch this movie or would you like to watch this movie? And the choices that you give them are both age appropriate and they're okay, whichever they choose. So there's no dispute. So basically, you set yourself up for one less headache. And really simple, right? Not rocket science. But communication is exchanging thoughts, opinions, and information through speech, writing, or signs. And it's information you want to impart to your child and information you want to know from your child. So it's like this two-way exchange, right? So it's so important that you figure out how to be on the same frequency as your kid because they surely aren't going to try to, it's not in their consciousness to figure out to be on the same frequency as you. So you need to figure out how to tweak the station, the frequency, so that you're able to communicate. And in figuring this out, it'll be of enormous benefit to you because remember, the formative years and the different stages through, say, about age 12 is your best chance and opportunity to set up the kind of mood and style of communication that you want to have with your child because they're still open, they're not cynical, they're not in their teenage, adolescent years where it becomes a little bit more contentious, a little bit more difficult. But by and large, remember that they're going to be like you. And the data that you've inputted in their little minds of mush is going to be like you. So here are some insights and questions to think about regarding communication. Being truthful is very important, of course, a good thing, but there's a difference between telling the truth and being brutally honest. Being brutally honest is not going to serve you or your child's best interest, especially when it's in the context of an aspiration. So don't burst their bubble. Always figure out a gentle way to communicate truth if it's difficult, and especially if it's a difficult revelation for them to come to terms with. So, for example, my son Lee was a child athlete, and like all child athletes, they aspire to be a professional soccer player, football player, basketball player, right? And who wouldn't want to be one, right? It's so exciting. So he was successful in high school as a soccer player, and the next step was to go and play for the college that he got into. So his dad and I supported him as far as he wanted to take this aspiration. And although he was in a position to pursue collegiate soccer, we knew that, the rigors of being in college, having to study and prepare to be a professional in business or the field he chose, and the practice that he needed to participate in for his team would take a tremendous amount of energy. And of course, the percentage of child athletes going on to be professionals are pretty slim, but we didn't want to burst his bubble. So, get them there slowly with patience when they come to this realization. So here's what I suggest, okay? By knowing what your child's strengths and talents are, through the conversations that you're having with them, you'll be able to set up a good communication channel. And in a previous video, I mentioned that the conversations that you're having is the relationship pathway you're creating with your child. So because of the time that you've been putting into all of this, you've pretty much set up a relationship with your child through this communication channel. So when you have the opportunity, keep in mind to share with them some thoughts that you have on, say, what his aspirations are. And So when you know what their talents and their skills are and what they aspire to be, for example, like Lee wanted to be um, really get into soccer. There was a soccer camp that was held during the holidays where we were in Hawaii, and a very popular soccer star would come and have uh, spend time with the kids and coach during the camp. And after the camp, he wanted to stay. The soccer pro wanted to stay for an extended vacation, but he couldn't because of his obligation as a team player. So that option wasn't available to him. So I kind of mentioned because I knew that Lee was more into business and getting into the business world as opposed to, say, the field of medicine or science. I just mentioned that, hey, wouldn't it be cool, if he was the owner of the team, then he could enjoy both, right? He could enjoy the culture of soccer, and he'd have the freedom to stay in Hawaii and enjoy the rest of his vacation or the rest of his time as a vacation. So that's just input. It doesn't necessarily mean that is, they're going to buy into it, but you're giving them a different way to think about things. So to wrap up, communicate. Setting you and your kid up to communicate effectively starts now, and the benefits are enormous. So take the time to look at these models, and even if it looks common sense and simple, just take a look at it, and it'll be in your subconscious, and you'll use it. You'll naturally use it, just as the kids are going to be using all the data, all the inputs that you're introducing them to. So the main point of the communicate segment is to successfully communicate with your child. Make them feel like they're the most important person on the planet. Because when someone makes you feel really important, you become very important to them, right? So if you make your child feel important, you're going to become so important to them. So show them through your loving words and gestures. Use kindness and empathy without visibly judging them, and let them know that you're their number one fan by helping and supporting them, by being there for them. So that, in a nutshell, was the communication model. And I hope that it helped a little bit, and I look forward to seeing you again next time on your happiness factor. And please, if you haven't already, please subscribe, share me with your friends, click the like button, and thank you again so much for your time. I'll see you next time. Happy parenting. Bye-bye.